registration is expected to start tomorrow, the 30th of June, across the country. She'll be speaking on issues around that registration, how prepared they are as a commission for that registration. We'll be looking at some of the things she'll speak about before and then after that presentation. I'll be doing that with two gentlemen here in the studio. I'll be doing this with Ebenezer Afenyi-Daze, who heads our business news desk, and also with Salom Adonu, who heads our articles and features desk here at City TV. Stay with us. We'll be right back. So welcome back to a special coverage of the press conference expected to be delivered by the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, that is Jane Mensah. My name is Vivian Kailoko. You're watching City TV. Let me introduce the two gentlemen. I have Ebenezer Afenyi-Daze. Ebenezer, welcome.
Thank you, Vivian.
And then I also have Salom Adonu. Salom, welcome.
Thank you, Vivian.
Okay, so let's go straight. We're expecting her to, in the next 10 minutes or so, address the public on their preparedness towards tomorrow's voter registration exercise, which is the 30th of June. It's supposed to last for a couple of days. But, Eben, so far, there have been issues about whether or not we should go ahead with this exercise because of the COVID-19 pandemic, among others. We've seen in other countries where elections have been done despite the COVID issues, among others. But you think from what the EC has told us so far in preparation for this exercise, they are ready for this?
Well, for now, it's a bit difficult to say. I think that we can judge when the exercise starts. All things being equal, it's supposed to start tomorrow. So if it starts, and then we can go to the ground and say that some measures have been put in place adequately to ensure that Ghanaians are protected whilst going through this process. As for the issues that happened, they've been settled. The highest court has spoken. There's not much anybody can do about it. And I'm not sure even the plaintiffs who went to court will do anything more than already they've started asking their Ghanaians to go and register so that they will be able to vote. So clearly we have crossed that hurdle, and so the process is on us, and individuals will have to take that decision and decide whether they want to be part of the process or not. It could go many ways. We could have less people registering because of fear. We could have people also going and saying that, well, I want to vote, so I'm going to go for it. There are those who even go and do it just to get an ID card, not necessarily to vote, but for other transactions. People will do it for all sorts of reasons, but at the end of the day, it's a civic responsibility, and it's important for our nation going forward, because after, indeed, once there will be an election, and then we will decide on which party rules the next 4 years after December 7 thereabouts going. So it's an important process. We have seen other organizations do well to observe the protocols. I sat here and said I wasn't ready to go to church, but on Sunday I went to church for the first time.
You are not ready to go to church, but you're ready to go to other places. God is watching you.
I went to church for the first time, and
how was it?
I was impressed.
Okay.
I went to the Ebenezer Methodist Church at Lashley Comte 18, and I was amazed at the level of compliance to every protocol, and it was really amazing. I felt so safe. And so the church, a lot of them have taken the lead in terms of being responsible, and we expect a no-mean agency like the Electoral Commission will do what is expected of them. So we hope to see what happens from tomorrow, and that we can judge better.
Okay. Salom, you've been following the court case that was brought to a finality last week and all that. Prior to that, a lot of back and forth over whether we should go ahead with this and that. We've gotten to the point where the court has ruled we should go ahead, but of course we cannot use the old voters' ID cards. But have we been able to pull everybody along to see the numbers we expect from tomorrow?
Well, the numbers, we will, I think we will see it when it starts. I think the Electoral Commission will want to believe that they've done quite a bit of work in respect of their constitutional mandate. And when you talk about the functions of the Electoral Commission, I mean, the basic law of the land, that is the Constitution, in Article 45, succinctly captures it. And I want to read a few of them, and then we can dilate. The Electoral Commission, that is 45. The Electoral Commission shall have the following functions. 1, to compile the register of voters and revise it at such periods as may be determined by law. And, in the last few days, this particular provision generated a lot of discussion. I will skip B and go to C. To conduct and supervise all public elections and referenda. D, to educate the people on the electoral process and its purpose. E, to undertake programs for the expansion of the registration of voters. And F, to perform such other functions as may be prescribed by law. So what the Electoral Commission is seeking to do tomorrow is the beginning of a very critical process that will underline, the rest of our preparations towards election 2020. It all begins with the register or the album. If you recall, recently MPP at their primaries had a lot of discussion about the album. Whose name is on it, whose name is not on it, how come somebody's name is on it, and how come certain people's names are not on it. The album is a beginning point, because you can scream and complain or praise a candidate or somebody all you want. If you are not captured on the roll, everything else is useless. So it is very key, and over in the next few days, I will expect to see heightened activity on the political front. So the Electoral Commission is just doing what the Constitution has asked it to do, and to directly answer your question, whether enough has been done to marshal the numbers, that goes to D, to educate the people on the electoral process and its purpose. I believe the Electoral Commission has been doing some education. I'm sure the NCC is helping it, etc. What is this process to do? This process, now we go to 42, this process is to ensure that every citizen of Ghana of 18 years of age and above and of sound mind has the right to vote and is entitled to be registered as a voter for the purposes of public elections and referenda. When you look at this provision, that is 42, a number of things jump out or jump at you. One, the fact of citizenship, and this has also been discussed widely in the past few days, and it is even currently being discussed with the goings on in the voter region and other places. So the issue of citizenship is important, because we want only people who are Ghanaian citizens to be on the roll. And part of what the Electoral Commission will be doing from tomorrow is to ensure that only people qualified in the sense of Ghanaian citizens get onto the roll. Number two, the qualification also has to do with the age of majority. In Ghana, the age of majority is 18. So if you are not 18, then you are not qualified to be on the roll. That will also be at work tomorrow. We will be seeing the Electoral Commission disqualify certain people because they may not be 18 and they will want to vote. If you do so, if you are not 18 and you register and you vote, that is criminal. They will also be looking at, the Constitution talks about being a Ghanaian citizen, being age 18 and above or of age, but you must also be of a sound mind. If you are not of a sound mind, you cannot register. So, prima facie, you must be of a sound mind. Other things which include the fact that when you have all these things, then you have a right to vote, and you are entitled to be registered as a voter for the purposes of voting in public elections.
Okay, so 18 years and above, yes, and then of sound mind. 18
years and above of sound mind, a Ghanaian citizen, when you qualify in this sense, then you will now be entitled to be registered to vote, because the right to vote is inalienable. It is a right given by the Constitution, and nobody can take it away from you. Okay. But you must satisfy these conditions. This is what the Electoral Commission will be seeking to do tomorrow and beyond. Okay.
Now, a lot of health issues have been raised with regards to how they'll go about this process. Some weeks back, we saw an artwork from them running us through the process, what it will be like in terms of making sure that the safety protocols are adhered to. From what we saw from them, is it something that is good enough for us to go ahead with tomorrow's exercise?
Well, again, you can only test the system when you begin the exercise. Again, I want to believe that they think they've done enough, and fortunately or unfortunately, the recent MPP primaries, gave us some opportunity to see how people behave when they are in crowds, when they are excited, or when they are not. So I want to believe that that will be, a very good experience for them. They were at that program today at the primaries because they conducted elections. This is a registration exercise, not an election exactly, but people management will happen. Fortunately, we've heard that, we've been told by the Ghana Health Service that medical personnel or health personnel, I should say, will be stationed at the various centers, and security men, as always, will also be there. They will be, first of all, seeking to ensure order. Number two, they'll be seeking to also ensure that the social distancing protocols and other health protocols we've been given in respect of the COVID-18 are adhered to. The sanitizers, the hand washing, etc. I'm sure they will station officers there to ensure that before you get close to the table where the scanner and where all those machines and people are, you have gone through a certain cleansing process so that by the time you will get there, you will not be at risk in terms of transferring or transmitting the virus or the disease, or getting infected. Also, we understand that there will be people with thermometer guns, officials with thermometer guns, who will check your temperature even before you enter the yard. These, I believe, are steps taken to ensure that to reduce the risk levels. You can't entirely eradicate the risk, but this will reduce the risk levels. And it's imperative to also point out that the Electoral Commission, for the first time in our history, have gone out of their way to procure sanitizers, thermometer guns, and Veronica buckets, and all those things we need for keeping to the health protocols given. So, I mean, all things being equal, I don't expect to see something that will not, I expect to see a good showing. And it is also important to point out that in these times, political tensions are high, especially when somebody's eligibility is being contested, especially in strongholds, etc., because there's so much suspicion in the system. I'm only hoping that, cool heads will prevail. I only hope that the adjudication process at the centers, if indeed there are, will be quick and swift in dealing with those issues. And I also hope that the security agencies will be professional and will be on top of their game, so that we don't see situations which will degenerate into what we don't expect. Once situations degenerate, there's anger, there is fight, etc., it becomes very difficult to separate people in terms of, they not coalescing together or crowding together. That is what we don't want. So basically, I think that they've done a number of operations. I don't expect to see anything contrary to what we've been told. If that happens, that'll be very disappointing indeed. Okay,
so let me run through from the artwork that we chanced upon, or we were given some weeks back towards the preparation for the registration exercise and the process we would all have to go through before we're able to register. First and foremost, you need to wear a face mask, and it is compulsory to get to the center with a face mask. So you cannot enter the registration center if you do not have a face mask. So the first thing is to have one. The second thing we are told will be done is your temperature being checked. So we are told that officials from the Ghana Health Service or medical people will check your temperature as the second thing after you have your face mask on. The third thing you'll be required to do is to wash your hands. So there'll be Veronica buckets and soap and then water provided for you to wash your hands. And then after you wash your hands, you join a queue. Now, when you join that queue, you're expected to practice the social distances. So you are required to ensure that you maintain a minimum of 1 meter while in that queue, or while waiting for the official to call you to start your process. So the social distancing, ensure that you have a minimum of 1 meter whilst you are in that queue. And then the fifth thing that you'll be required, that you do in that process, is the scanners will be wiped. We are told the scanners, because this was something of concern. If you're going to place your fingerprint on a machine, what measures have been put in place to ensure that that machine is clean enough so that if there's a virus from somebody, it does not transfer to you? So we are told that the scanners will be wiped with alcohol wipes before capturing fingerprints. So we're guessing before and after anybody comes in, it will be wiped. And then the sixth thing we're told is you will be provided with hand sanitizers before you leave the registration center. So before your fingerprints are captured, they are wiped with alcoholic wipes, alcohol-based wipes, and then after you place your fingers on the machine, you will be required to use the sanitizers before you leave the registration center. This is quite a good one if we are able to adhere to even.
Yeah, they look good. Like we always say, you can better judge on the ground. I mean, as for the ideas on paper, they always look good, but the reality of implementation always becomes the challenge. But I want to believe that for all that the EC itself has gone through, whether self-inflicted or however you may call it, they really would want to give a good account of themselves, as it will be a serious bashing for them. And it's a test also of their capabilities at this point. And I don't think they want to really mess this up in any way. And to be frank, registration process itself is not really a cumbersome process that much. I mean, the times that I have registered for my voter ID card, I didn't really have to go through any strenuous process like that. I mean, it was quite a simple process. The only difficulty at this time is also because of the COVID situation at hand, and also the tensions that have preceded this particular exercise, and that makes it a bit of a different situation. Because I'm a bit concerned about the fact that we'll have to have a lot of people going through the process through the Guarantor system. And that is what bothers me, because in the past where we have used the Guarantor system, even in very minimal cases, we've had serious confrontations between party agents in particular, challenging the eligibility of people who are attempting to register, whether they are 18 really or whether they are Ghanaians and all that. And CODEU, the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, raised similar concerns, for which reason they thought that the EC should have gone ahead to accept the existing voter ID card, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So we hope that security in particular will be beefed up, especially in dealing with this Guarantor system, because if we are not careful, it's going to be a huge problem. Because we know, I do not have the exact figures, but I know that there are not many Ghanaians that much who have passports, and not many people have still had their Ghana card. So indeed, the Guarantor system is going to be very prominent in this exercise. And so we have to make sure that we avoid these confrontations, because it will become a big issue if we are not careful and we don't handle it well. And that's what bothers me. And also the concerns that have come about who is really a Ghanaian citizen, especially from the border towns, the voter situation that we are having. We don't know what's going to happen, but we are hoping that it will be handled well and it doesn't escalate into something we are not expecting.
Okay. We'll go to the border issues quickly, but I just want us to run through what the Electoral Commission expects in terms of identity, even as touched on that, for the registration for tomorrow. So I'm quickly going to read their press statement they released on the 25th of June 2020, and then I'll let our lawman here, Salom, run us through that. So it says the Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision on Thursday, 25th June 2020, dismissed the cases brought against the Electoral Commission. The Supreme Court directed the Commission and all stakeholders to comply with Articles 42 and 45 of the 1992 Constitution and C1126 Public Election Registration of Voters Amendment Regulations 2020. Now, for the avoidance of doubt, CI126 spells out the requirements for proof of identification for the purposes of the registration. Now it states as follows. So this is what you are required. Either a person who applies for registration as a voter shall provide as evidence of identification one of the following. So one, either a passport. Two, a national identification card issued by the National Identification Authority. By then, we are talking about the recent Ghana card, not the old one. And then thirdly, one voter registration identification guarantee form as set out in Form 1 of the schedule that has been completed and signed by 2 registered voters, and by the substitution for sub-regulation 4 of 4, despite paragraph C of sub-regulation 3, a registered voter shall not guarantee the identity of more than 10 persons. So I'm going to let Salom break down the part about the guarantors standing in and people not being able to guarantee for more than 10 persons.
Yes, interesting, Vivian. I have some views on the measures at the polling station, but at the registration center. But I will deal with the issue of the guarantors first. Okay. So yes, the Electoral Commission, as part of CI 126, provides a form, which is Form 1 of the schedule of the CI 126, and this is what the form says. So Electoral Commission or Public Elections into bracket registration of voters amendment regulations 2020 schedule 1 for regulations 13C, Electoral Commission of Ghana voter registration identification guarantee form. And per the law, you need one of these forms. So in support of voter registration for name of applicant, your name comes there, voter registration form number. You have your voter registration form. The form they will give you at the polling station, you put the number there. The registration center code, you write it there. The registration center name, you put it there. Now there's a table that you must fill. So the table has guarantor's particulars, first guarantor, second guarantor. So we have the name of the guarantor, relationship to the applicant, that is A, parent, B, sibling, C, spouse, D, guardian, E, other, into brackets specified, contact number, voter ID number. That is a voter ID number of the person guaranteeing for you. Okay. You may by now be aware that the person may not guarantee for you unless he or she has gone through the process already.
Yeah.
So that person's voter ID number, the new voter ID number, will have to be reproduced or produced there. The polling station code of that ID or where the person registered has to be provided. The polling station name has to be provided, and the person has to sign or thumbprint where appropriate. And then now you go ahead to swear. I solemnly swear or affirm that I know that Mr. Stroke, Mrs. Stroke, Miss, so and so is qualified to register as a voter at the above named registration center. 2, I solemnly swear or affirm that I know that Mr., Mrs., Miss, so and so is qualified to register as a voter at the above named registration center, and should it come out as false, I bear the consequences. So now I, if I'm the one guaranteeing, I, Selom Adonu, have read and interpreted the content hereof to the, so the guarantor, that is if the guarantor is uneducated or blind. So I have read and interpreted the content hereof to the guarantor or guarantors, and he or she seems to have perfectly understood before making his or her mark. This is what in law we call a jurat. That last portion is what we call a jurat. Okay. When an illiterate or somebody who is visually impaired is executing a document, somebody who can see or is educated and can read must read through the document and explain to the person and sign to show that indeed you have read the thing and explained to that person. So that person's signing, it is based on the understanding the person has derived from what you have told him. So it's a very important thing. Without this, a lot of documents could be invalidated. All right, so that is that for that process, that, what's the name? Guaranteeing. Or there's a guarantor's form. Okay. This is what a lot of people, I believe, will be doing. And you need 2 people to do this for you. You need one form, but I need 2 people to do this for you. So what I suspect will happen from tomorrow is that a lot of the people who do not have any of these
Ghana card, the new one, or the passport.
The passport and the Ghana card, will have to wait maybe a few days or maybe from tomorrow even. But they will not be the first people to go, because if you don't have anything to show, you have to leave people who have those documents to go first, so that when they get theirs, then you can now talk to them to do this, to go through this process with you. This thing itself spawns a number of things, or it has generated discussion on a number of areas. Yeah. There is the fear that people may become guarantpreneurs. We have conflictpreneurs, we have entrepreneurs, guarantpreneurs. So they will be at the polling stations and may even be taking money from people to go through this process for them. I think the Electoral Commission or the security agencies or forces there should also keep an eye on that. We want the process to be genuine. So if somebody, I don't know, will pay me money or give me a token and I will garant for the person, it makes nonsense of the whole process, So that is what we have to be looking at. What also happens if somebody comes across the border and 2 of us come and say, oh, this guy is Ghanaian, we know him, we garant for him, but the person is not. Doesn't it also defeat this whole process? So it's a number of things I think we must be looking at. But to the initial point I really wanted to make on the processes, on the face masking and everything. Do we know what will happen if somebody shows up at a place without a face mask because the person cannot afford it? Is the Electoral Commission going to provide that person a face mask, because we don't have to assume that everybody can afford a face
Is it
mask.
the Electoral Commission's duty to provide face masks for this purpose?
I don't think so. I don't think it's their duty.
Yeah.
I've not heard anything suggesting that it's their duty. They may do it out of their own benevolence or goodwill, but I don't think it is part of their job to provide face masks. So what happens to that person? Of course, by the fact that the person walking from his home to the polling station without a face mask, that person is committed an offense, because you must always have face masks.
Exactly.
But I'm just raising that. Temperature checks, great. So they will check your temperature before you come. What temperature range are they looking at? It will be interesting to know what temperature range they are looking at. Is it 37.1 to between 37.1 to 37.5? What temperature range are they looking at? So that we have uniformity across. And should the temperature range be the same across the country? We have places where maybe the weather is hot, even though there's something called homeostasis, the body's ability to maintain its balance, etc. We must.
And the weather has changed. It could be cold at certain times.
So we need to. I think it would be nice to know what that is. What happens also if they check somebody's temperature and the temperature is above the limit or the threshold or above the mark they've been given?
I think the medical people station.
So the person won't register?
No.
The person will register. But that then becomes a problem, because the person is of sound mind. The fact that the person has fever, and it could be fever, it may not be COVID.
Necessarily COVID.
It may be malaria just coming up. So the fact that I have temperature, as we say for children, doesn't, invalidate or doesn't stop me from getting registered, because 42 makes no reference to that. The only thing 42 makes reference to are the fact that you should be Ghanaian, you should be of age, you should be of sound mind. And I'm not sure you can equate having temperature to having an unsound mind. So that we must look at. I don't know how they will do it. Maybe they will move you somewhere else to go and register you. I don't know how they will do it, but I hope they've thought about it properly. The issue about the scanner wipes, it sounds good on paper, it sounds great, but we have instances where people, put their hands, the fingers on the machines, and their fingers, and the machine doesn't read very well. I mean, in election time, so they have to do it multiple times. Are we sure that by cleaning the thing many times and wiping the finger many times, we will not, blur maybe the print on the finger?
Yeah.
I don't know what the experts have to say about that, but I think it's something.
I think it's something people have raised questions that, like you're saying, we've had challenges where when it's even clean, there are no other things, put there. So this alcohol and whatever you're putting there, would it not affect, the functionality of the machine? So that's a very genuine question.
And I hope the EC, and I believe the EC has thought about this, so that and have communicated to all their officers across the country, so that when a situation like that presents itself, they will not be found wanting and seeking to do try and error. When the people see that you don't know what to do about a particular situation, that is when the agitation comes in. That is where the issues of trust, etc., will come in. So I hope that all these matters have been properly covered by the Electoral Commission.
Okay, so we have a lot of our brothers and sisters stuck abroad because of this COVID thing and the closure of borders. Do we know what the plan is for these people in terms of this registration exercise?
I know there are petitions flying left, right, center. Indeed, it brings up the bigger issue of the RUPAL. I know the court, the Human Rights Court, sometime, 2 years ago or so, gave the Electoral Commission some timelines to actualize that ambition or that objective, But given the circumstances of today, COVID, etc., timelines and all, I am not sure that the Electoral Commission is in a position to implement the RUPAL law, even though it's law. They've not spoken about it, I don't know, but I'm just speaking, based on what's on the ground. I'm not a technical elections person. But technically, we are even praying that they are able to do this internal registration in good time so that the process will proceed unhindered. I'm not sure about RUPAL right now. I'm not sure about the resource, implications. I don't know. I think what can happen is people who are on official assignments, Ghanaian students, etc., and it's been done in all elections. They go to the missions and they vote. So, though I don't know about registration, I think a similar thing could be done for registered Ghanaians or people who are on official assignments, like military people, like students on scholarship, etc., so that they can register at least, and election time they can vote. If by election time they are in Ghana, I'm sure there could be a discussion around special voting for people like that, so that they also vote. But to shut them out completely when they are on official assignments, especially when the borders have been closed, I think it will not be very fair.
Okay, I was talking about the Rupal matter. Let me read to you quickly a story we published in December 2017 following a court order to the EC to implement Rupal within the next 12 months. Now, it says the High Court in Accra, Human Rights Division, presided over by His Lordship Justice Anthony Yeboah. Today, that was a Monday, ordered the Electoral Commission to implement within 12 months the Representation of the People Amendment Act, also known as the Rupal Law 2006 Act 699. Now, Justice Anthony Yeboah said the EC had, for the last 10 years, breached the rights of Ghanaians living abroad by failing to give them an opportunity to vote. He thus condemned the EC's failure to address challenges preventing Ghanaians living abroad from voting, and specifically asked them to ensure that arrangements are made for such people to vote in the 2020 elections. And then it goes on and on and on. 2017, 2020, still.
Sorry, let me just speak. So this Justice Anthony Kojo Yeboah died soon after this ruling, and he was one of the key judges when it came to human rights issues. If you recall, there was some issue about some 2 fire service ladies who got pregnant in their first few years, and they had to go home. But the court had to ensure that they were reinstated. He was a judge who dealt with that matter. So he was a star judge or performer, a human rights champion. But unfortunately, he passed on in 2009. Even.
Okay.
Yeah, Vivian, I think the story you read was 2017, but in 2019, the EC actually got another extension. The court gave them another extension after the 2017 one expired. Okay. So court extends implementation of Rupal by another 12 months. So this was after the first extension. And
which was
this was May 2019. Okay. So it means that by May 2020, which we've passed, they should have completed the process. Yeah. So you remember they were taken to court by some 5 Ghanaians who lived abroad, and so. At a point, the judge actually said that the EC was dragging its feet deliberately in the implementation of Act 669. And it was the court's view that the EC failed to give any cogent reasons for the delay, describing the delays as grievous, unreasonable, and unjustifiable. But clearly, we know that somewhere 2019 onwards into 2020, the EC had a few conversations abroad. I think so. They sent some of their committee. I think the Deputy Electoral Commission chair was abroad with some people, and they engaged various Ghanaian communities on this Rupal implementation. I think that we will not be fair if we think that getting Ghanaians abroad to vote is that simple. It's not. Because we haven't built those kinds of strong systems, and so it's understandable it's taking a bit of a long time to get
We'll come to that later, but as we promised you, we're taking you live to the Electoral Commission, where the Electoral Commissioner, Jean Mensah, is about to address Ghanaians on their preparedness for the registration exercise, which is starting tomorrow, 30th June, Tuesday.
Our commissioners, the commission members, we have Mrs. Aja Sarah Jumaiga. We also have Mrs. Rebecca Kabuki Ajalo. And then Mr. Ebenezer Agri Fing. We are also blessed to have the Executive Directors, Dr. Sribo Big, Director Electoral Services. Then we have Mr. Lawrence Sapo, Director Administration. Then we have the Deputy Directors, Mr. Fretete. Mr. Boylu is hiding behind me. Mr. Samuel Boylu, he is in charge of human resources of the department. Mr. Emmanuel Adai. He's a lawyer professional in the field of practice of the Electoral Commission. Without much ado, can we proceed and respectfully? Let me go straight to the main agenda on the table by respectfully asking our chairperson, Mrs. Guinea Sakio, to give us her address. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, distinguished citizens of our beloved country, Ghana, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to speak with you this evening, and I bring you warm greetings from the Electoral Commission of Ghana. This is the day our Father God has made, and we rejoice and we are glad in it. It's been a long journey, and we thank God for bringing us this far. Today marks an important day in our national calendar. It is the day that precedes the commencement of our 2020 voters registration exercise. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on Thursday, the 25th of June, 2020, the Supreme Court gave its ruling in two cases brought against the Electoral Commission. One regarding the Commission's intended compilation of a new voters register, and the other regarding the Commission's position that existing voter ID cards should not be included in the list of eligible documentation for the registration of voters. The Supreme Court, in its ruling, directed the Commission and all its stakeholders to comply with Articles 42 and 45 of the 1992 Constitution and CI 126. By that ruling, the Supreme Court granted the Electoral Commission the authority to carry on with the compilation of the new voters register using the CI 126 and to exclude the existing voters' ID cards as identification for voters. This ruling provides the Electoral Commission with a go-ahead to commence the 2020 voters registration exercise. The exercise will begin tomorrow, 30th June 2020, and will continue until the 6th of August 2020. The registration of voters, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, is a critical process in our electoral cycle. The voters register is a bedrock on which credible elections rest. It is the foundation upon which the sovereign right of a people to choose their national leaders is hinged. Therefore, in carrying out the voter registration exercise, we as a commission are mindful of the significance of the task we are undertaking. We would like to assure all of you that as a commission, our rationale for compiling a new register is not to disenfranchise any eligible voter. On the contrary, it is to ensure that all our citizens who qualify are afforded the opportunity to register and cast their votes. The Commission is of the view that only eligible citizens should have the right to determine who governs and leads our dear nation. And we are determined to ensure that no one is left behind. We deem it necessary to assure you that our decisions and actions are taken without fear or favor and without recourse to any individual or group of persons. We have a duty to our citizens to ensure that only the will of the people stands. I urge all Ghanaians to move forward with the Commission in implementing the ruling of the court. And indeed, this is the moment for all of us to move forward. It is time for us to turn our energies towards the exercise of registering voters. Let us join hands together notwithstanding our differences, to ensure that every Ghanaian, every deserving Ghanaian of 18 years and above is able to register as a voter. Dear citizens, your participation in and monitoring of the voters' registration exercise will be critical to maintaining the integrity of the register. Please participate in the voters' registration exercise. Monitor the process at your registration centers and draw the attention of the Commission to any anomalies you might observe in the process. Together, we will arrive at a comprehensive and credible voters' register. I'll now move on to an issue of importance to the registration process. That is the question of eligible documentation for proving one's identity as a Ghanaian. Indeed, CI 126 speaks to this question. CI 126 specifies the documents that each citizen of Ghana is required to present in order to be eligible to register as a voter. The required documents are a valid passport or a national identification card issued by the National Identification Authority. CI 126 further specifies that in an event that a citizen of Ghana does not have either of the above documents, he or she must present two guarantors who must themselves have registered under the current registration process to vouch for or guarantee the identity of the said person as a citizen of Ghana. We are aware that some concerns have been raised about the issue and the use of guarantors. We wish to acknowledge these concerns. We understand that it may seem like a burden having to find two registered persons to vouch for one's identity as a Ghanaian. And yet, it seems to us to be the lesser of two evils. Although it may take a little bit more of your time and that of your guarantors, it will ensure that only persons who are Ghanaian and of 18 years old are listed on our voters' register. Guaranteeing of identity through the use of guarantors is actually not a new phenomenon in Ghana's voting procedures. This system has been with us since the beginning of our democracy, as the framers of the law anticipated situations in which Ghanaian citizens might, for legitimate and unavoidable reasons, be unable to prove or provide documentation to prove their citizenship. May I crave your indulgence, ladies and gentlemen, in presenting you with available data on the numbers of persons who have in the past been registered using guarantors as follows. In 2014, 928,540 persons were registered as voters. Of this number, 82.2% of registered voters used the guarantor system. In 2016, 1,046,067 persons were registered as voters. Of this number, 92.5 used guarantors. In the continuous registration process in 2016, 37,929 persons were registered. Of this number, 93.1% used guarantors. In the referendum of 2018, 47,852 persons were registered. 99.5 of these persons used guarantors. In 2019, the limited registration process of 2019, 1,211,395 persons were registered. 95.2% of these persons used guarantors. As you will have observed from the above numbers, my predecessors have applied this system in past voter registration processes, as they have sought to ensure that no one was disenfranchised for valid reasons beyond their control. I hope and pray that the 2020 election should be the last time that we as a country will need the Guarantor system. As come 2020, all citizens should have been issued with national identification cards, and the processes for applying for the national identification cards should have become routine procedure carried out at the national, district, and regional levels. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned earlier, the voters' registration exercise begins tomorrow. It begins at a time when we as a nation have not yet beaten the COVID-19 virus, nor completely curtailed its spread. The registration exercise, will require the gathering of large numbers of people. There's the risk of transmission and spread of the COVID-19 virus at these gatherings. We are aware that some of us would prefer that we wait for the end of the pandemic before carrying out our processes such as this one. Others believe that since the virus may linger into long term, we must find ways to stay safe while engaging in our normal business. The latter view seems largely to reflect the global approach to the question of when to resume normal economic and social life, but with each country adapting this approach to its circumstances. As a Commission, we have paid close attention to the signals from the government and from the Ghana Health Service, which suggest the latter approach. We have in addition held discussions with a national COVID-19 team established by the government and again the Ghana Health Service. We have taken their advice on best practice in curtailing the spread of the virus. We have thus developed the following safety regimen to be carried out at all our registration centers throughout the country. First, as has been our practice, all registration centers will be set up outdoors in open spaces. Where schools, churches, and other such venues are used as registration centers, we will not set camp inside the school or church buildings. Our registration centers will be set up in open fields and open spaces outside the school and church buildings. We will not use the school or church furniture. We will use the Electoral Commission's furniture and set up for use as registration centers. This has been our policy and practice in times past and will remain so. As an added measure, our furniture and our fittings will be continually wiped with alcohol wipes. Other COVID-19 preventive measures that will be observed at all registration centers are as follows. All people entering the registration center or queuing to enter the registration center would be required to wear a nose mask. On arrival at the registration center, every person's temperature will be taken using a thermometer gun. Persons with temperatures above 37.8 degrees Celsius will be directed to the health personnel at the registration centers or the nearest public health facility. Special arrangements will be made for them to register. The Commission will provide liquid soap and water with Veronica buckets for the mandatory washing of hands before joining the queue or entering the registration center. There will be strict adherence to physical distance of at least 1 meter in the queues at all centers. Our fingerprint scanners will be cleaned prior to the capturing of fingerprints of applicants using alcohol wipes. Hand sanitizers will be provided for the mandatory sanitizing of hands when leaving the stations. It is important to note that the Ghana Health Service has released some 7,000 health assistants to each of the registration centers nationwide. It is expected that the health assistants will assist us in ensuring strict adherence to the safety protocols outlined by the Electoral Commission. In all of these safety measures, we will rely on your cooperation, dear citizens. We believe and know that it will not be easy, but with your compliance with the above measures, we should be able to carry out all the registration procedures safely. I must mention further that special arrangements have been made for the elderly and vulnerable people during the registration exercise. All vulnerable persons, such as persons with disabilities, pregnant women, and breastfeeding mothers, the aged, that is 60 years and above, as well as the sick, will be given priority at all our registration centers. In addition, the Commission has introduced a new facility to serve the aged and the vulnerable as follows. The aged and vulnerable may go to the district offices of the Electoral Commission across the country for their registration. Additionally, they have the option of printing and filling out their forms before they go to the registration centers. This will help to speed up the registration process. It is important to emphasize that the Form 1A, which captures the biometric data, as well as the guarantee forms, can be found on our website. And the address is www.ec.gov.gh. Please note that the registration for the aged and vulnerable at our district offices starts on Thursday, the 2nd of July, 2020. A major concern a number of citizens have raised with us has to do with the quality of our temporary officers. We have recruited, trained, and deployed over 40,000 staff, indeed over 44,000 staff into the field. We are confident that the training provided them has prepared them to operate efficiently and professionally. As part of the training, we have drummed home the importance of instilling the principles of integrity, fairness, and transparency in all the activities throughout the registration process. We have also introduced a code of conduct which spells out guidelines for the activities. As part of the recruitment exercise, all temporary staff signed an oath pledging to abide by the rules and regulations governing the activities. Ahead of the registration exercise, the Commission will deploy 8,000 biometric voter registration kits into the field. The kits have been thoroughly tested, and we are confident that they will function efficiently and ensure a smooth and speedy registration of each applicant. We envisage that the robustness of the kits, as well as the extensive training offered, each applicant should not spend more than 10 minutes going through the registration process. We have deployed over 5,000 technicians to the field and set up zonal centers all across the country. These centers will be manned by our technicians, and it is expected that they will ensure a prompt and timely replacement of faulty kits in the field. We believe that with this approach, we should witness a smooth and seamless voters' registration exercise. I'll now turn my attention to the mode of registration. The cluster system will be used for the voters' registration exercise. A cluster consists of 5 registration centers or polling stations in a district. In total, 6,788 clusters, made up of 5 polling stations each, will be covered. This means that all 33,367 registration centers will be covered during the registration exercise. The registration will take place simultaneously in all 16 regions of Ghana. The entire registration will be undertaken in 5 phases. Each phase will span a duration of 6 days. In effect, a registration team will spend 6 days at each of the 5 centers of the cluster, thus making 30 days for each cluster. We would have an additional 6 days which would be used for the mopping up exercise. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Commission has published the movement plan on its website and in the newspapers today. We would urge you to go onto our website and study the movement plan to enable you ascertain when the registration team would visit your registration center. Distinguished guests, it is important to emphasize at this time the transparency of our processes and to allay the fears of our stakeholders. Over the years, a number of mechanisms have been built into our processes to tighten the loose screws and to ensure transparency and accountability from the registration of voters to the declaration of results. For the purposes of this exercise, I'll focus on the transparency embedded into our registration process. Indeed, before the Electoral Commission commences any registration process, it has to provide all registered political parties with a 21 days notice of its intention to compile or update the register. This is to afford political parties the opportunity to train and assign agents to the various registration centers. The agents of the political parties remain at the registration centers from the start of the process to the end. At the beginning of each day, the Electoral Commission officer starts the machine or kits in the presence of political party agents. The kits show the date, time, and a record of the number of persons who have registered. In all cases, at the start of the day, that number is 0. At the end of each day, the kit generates a printout that gives the total number of persons who have been registered in a day. Each political party is given a copy of the printout. The Electoral Commission forwards the same copy to its database. Additionally, political parties may on their own record the number of persons who are registered per day. This enables them to confirm their own records against the printout from the Electoral Commission. Indeed, any party with this information can set up its own system to track and record the number of applicants who have been registered across the nation on a daily basis. It is important to note that the entire registration process is also monitored by various observer groups. And this year we've seen a good number of observer groups who have shown interest in monitoring the process. We believe this will further strengthen our processes. Distinguished citizens, as a commission which believes in law and order, peace and stability, we have engaged regularly with the security agencies through the mechanism of the Election Security Task Force. We are confident that our early and regular engagements will yield positive gains and cause us to witness a peaceful and violence-free exercise. On our part, we call on all Ghanaians to work with us to ensure a peaceful registration exercise. Members of the press, dear citizens, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a rather lengthy speech, but I hope it has addressed the most important issues relating to the 2020 voter registration exercise. On behalf of the Electoral Commission of Ghana, I thank all our stakeholders, namely the leaders of our religious bodies, traditional authority, civil society, the media, and all well-meaning Ghanaians for their support over the months. I'd also like to thank all of you for your time and the opportunity to speak to you. We look forward to seeing all of you at the registration centers with your face masks firmly in place as we embark upon this all-important exercise. We will carry out this exercise efficiently and safely, God being our helper. I wish you all a blessed evening. May God bless our homeland Ghana and make our nation great and strong. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very, very much, Mrs. Jimmy, Chairperson of the Electoral Commission. We thank you for the comprehensive address. At this juncture, I'd like to call on Mr. Samuel to lead us in a word of prayer.
We thank you, precious Lord, for this day. This is the day that you have made, that we have to be glad and rejoice in it. We thank you for the leadership of this commission. We thank you for the chairperson. And we thank you for the entire membership of the commission. We thank you that you shall set us forth for this registration process. And we are grateful.
There you saw the Commissioner of the Electoral Commission, Jean Mensah, giving the preparedness, or telling us about the Commission's preparedness for the registration exercise, which is expected to start tomorrow, the 30th of June, and end on the 5th of July. So, guys, let's go through quickly some of the pointers from this presser. Amen.
Yeah, so I think most of the points were some of the things you mentioned earlier in your statement. So all registration centers will be in open spaces. They use easy furniture in the schools and the church spaces. They will all be sanitized, wiped with alcohol wipes. All people entering centers will wear nose masks, temperatures taken. Earlier, Salem had a concern about what temperature will raise issues and what steps will be taken. And she announced that if a temperature is beyond 37.8, you'll be directed to a health staff. But then she stated that that person will not be denied the process of registration, which is important. The variable car buckets will be there for washing, hand washing, social distancing, the 1 meter rule. Or the scanners will be wiped with alcohol wipes. And then also people will wipe their hands before leaving the center. About 7,000 health assistants have been dispatched to each of the registration centers, the cluster. You have special arrangements for the elderly, the sick, disabled, and pregnant women. And there will be a priority on the day. And they also say that some of them can actually go to their district offices for their registration. And that one is supposed to start on Thursday, not tomorrow. The guarantee forms and others can be found on their websites. Over 44,000 staff deployed to the fields. Staff who are on the field have signed an oath to go by the code of conduct. Over 8,000 biometric voter registration kits dispatched and tested. Each applicant, they are hopeful, will not spend more than 10 minutes at a center if the kit should work perfectly. And you have a cluster. Each cluster for registration consists of 5 centers or 5 polling stations. And in all, you have 6,788 classes made up of 5 polling centers each. And so all these centers will cover the 33,367 registration centers across the country. And the exercise will be in 5 phases, 6 days in each cluster, to make it 30 days, and an additional 6 days will be used for mop-up. And also they talk about the fact that the full details of their movement plan will be published on their website, so that people can check and know when the officials will be visiting their centers. And she talked about the transparency process and what the parties will be allowed to do on the day of registration. They will have access to the kits and take down the details and the numbers and compare with their numbers if they want to, so that we ensure that everything that the EC captures in their system at the end of the day will be equal to what they have. I think that it looks good. It looks good, and we will
But
hope
have all the issues been addressed? For example, we still don't know. Of course, we know it's illegal to get there without a mask. We don't know what will happen. We don't know how will be checked if you are underage and you get there. We don't know that process.
Okay,
Do we know?
I think, yes, I think that process, they've had a system over the years they've used for that. That's why you have the party agents and other people. So if there is a concern, you raise it and that matter is flagged, and I'm sure the person goes through a certain process. So the same way they were dealing with that matter in years past will be applied. In the speech though, or in the address though, quite simple, quite straight to the point, and I think it's covered almost every blade of grass, and which is good. Very fantastic speech on paper. It's my hope that in implementing this, we don't see a lot of difficulties. I'm particularly, should I say, impressed about how she delved into the matter of the guarantors, because the discussion generally has been as if the guarantors would be the main thing because many people do not have passports, etc. So she went back and dealt with how, or addressed how, over the years, the guarantor system has been the main means of identification for people. So you've had times where it was 82% or 82% of all people who registered used the guarantor system, 90%, over 90% to 93.1% in the last time. So it appears that it may not be anything so different after all, just that people thought that the old ID card should have been passed. But again, if you think that the old register had problems, bloated, had people who shouldn't be on it, and you use the old ID card, then it will be as same as not doing a new one at all, because the same people may be imported into it. So I think that brings some clarity to it, and that is good. But people must be happy or must be willing to help people register. That is great. I also like the part about should I call it social protection, the part about the aged, the elderly, the vulnerable, the sick, etc., having a special dispensation. So when you're a breastfeeding mom, or when you are an aged or a vulnerable person, you are prioritized. You get to the station or the registration center and you are given priority. You can also visit the district offices of the EC from Thursday to register. Even to add to that, you can get a form ahead of time, fill it so that when you go there, you don't waste time. I think these are good things that they are doing to ensure that they reduce the burden on such vulnerable people. I'm also impressed about the transparency measures, what you call the transparency measures. The fact that 21-day notice by law has been given to all parties so they prepare their polling agents or their party agents, etc. Machines will be started before all the party agents there for transparency reasons. And at the end of every day, the kits will generate a printout that says the parties can on their own compile, and if they have the means, set up their own system to track and monitor what the EC is doing. So that in the end, when the EC gives you the register, there's a way of cross-checking to see if indeed what you have is what the EC is giving you.
I think that is very key, considering the fact that the issues around disenfranchising people and who we are putting on the register, and having the various political parties have access to that and be part of the system, it will clear a lot of the doubts and pull them along based on the issues that have come up over the weeks.
So yes, so it's been great. Only that, of course, you mentioned security, but from experience, the parties will be busing their people to the centers. And you can imagine how the center is, not two big places. If you get two buses, bringing people, you realize how crowded a place can be. In fact, she also talked about the pandemic and what they are doing about it. I think her speech generally touched on almost everything.
Okay. Now, Ivan, you want to say
a lot
something?
of the times, if the political parties, especially those who matter, will comport themselves, most of this exercise will go well. A lot of the times, the parties are the problems. And if they're able to comport themselves well, I don't think we should have a bigger problem. I was also happy about the statistics she gave on the fact that in the past, how the guarantor system has been useful to quite a number of people. Yeah. And the point she makes that per the new law, CI 126, what will happen is that next year, going into when we are preparing for another election, by then, every Ghanaian should have their Ghana card, hopefully. So the guarantor system may not be necessary, because you can get a Ghana card from 15 years and above. And so if you get that, it means that guarantor system will be able to take it out completely. And hopefully we pray that the NIA will do that, and then we'll have some smooth process. Okay.
Now we know that the president at 8 o'clock as well will be addressing the nation on Wednesday's actually tomorrow, which is Tuesday. 30th of June, the voter registration exercise. We'll be bringing you that live as well on TV and radio, so watch out for the president's speech. But there are issues around what happens to persons who will not be able to register within this period because of two reasons. One, they're not well, and secondly, they are stuck overseas because of the COVID matter. Do we know the plans for such people?
Once she didn't make mention of that, I do not think there's really a plan like that. I mean, the exercise will last about almost 30 days, last like a month. And then she talks about 6 additional days for mop-up. So probably within that 6 additional days, it should, for mop-up, it should be able to cover site people. These are the categories that the mop-up is for. So if within the 6 days mop-up, you are in that category and you still couldn't register, it's as well as you've denied yourself the opportunity because they've given you the space enough. So I don't think that should be a problem.
Yeah, but I think that there's a real issue that has to do with discrimination, because there are people who are Ghanaians and they live outside, they qualify, and so are unable to make themselves available for various reasons, COVID, etc. Maybe they are outside schooling or something. There should certainly be a way, because it's a constitutional right, and no qualified person should be denied of it. And since the Constitution is the supreme law of the land and abhors discrimination, you preventing those people from getting on the roll is a form of discrimination which flies in the face of the Constitution. So I don't know what discussions will be there, but again, as I mentioned, I think ROPAL maybe should be looked at. If ROPAL is not possible at this moment, there should be a way of getting people who are on specific assignments outside to register. I don't know whether there'll be a special dispensation for them. I don't know how there'll be, but by all means, there should be a discussion around this for people to have their names captured on the roll so they can also be part of the decision-making process of our country in terms of electing our leaders.
Okay, so if you look at today's newspapers, most of the newspapers, for those who want to know which areas, the specific locations they can have the registration. If you look at the daily guide, for example, we'll try and put this on our website. It's quite a huge chunk of data. It gives you the exact places you can register in any place in the country. So for Greater Accra region, it gives you from Gansal to Ablekuma South to Ayawa, so all that where you can register all the way to the Western region, Ashanti region, and all that. But we'll try and put that on our website. But you can grab a copy of the Daily Guide newspaper, for example. It has all the places that you can have your registration from tomorrow, the 30th of June. And this will run for a period till most people are able to have their registration done. So this is where we'll
GBESA also announced that information is available on the EC
website. Okay, great. So you can go to the website and then find out where you can have your registration. If you're in Korle-Klottey, just visit the website. You can find the various options available for you or wherever you find yourself. So guys, I think we'll have to leave it here. Remember, the president will address the nation today at 8 o'clock, Monday, 8 o'clock. And then tomorrow, the registration exercise will start Tuesday, the 30th of June, and it will run for some number of weeks. We urge everybody to go out in their numbers and register so they can vote in December 2020 to choose their leaders for Parliament and for the presidential election. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Ebenezer Afenyi-Darcy heads our business news desk for radio and TV, and Selim Adenu, he heads articles and features desk for TV and radio. We'll be back at 8 o'clock where we'll bring you the president's speech addressing issues around the voters registration exercise. And later tomorrow, we'll have discussions around it as well on our 2 platforms, on the breakfast show for TV and then for radio as well. My name is Vivian Kai Loco. Thank you so much for joining us. See you at 8 o'clock. Goodbye.
Some money, but I ain't giving it to you. There is nothing as hard as a diamond. For buildings with superior strength that withstand all weather conditions, Diamond Cement should be your preferred choice. Locate Diamond Cement nationwide with factories in Aflao, Takrady and Bupe. Diamond Cement, as hard as a diamond.